Yeah, thanks for joining us on your channel of choice at this time, Africa Independent Television Reality. Welcome to Focus Nigeria, your program, in which we put the searchlight on topical issues in the polity. My name is Benga. Really glad to be here this wet Tuesday morning. It's wet and cold in the city of Abuja. This is one of such mornings you just feel like doing nothing, but just stay in bed, perhaps after a hot cup of coffee. But here we are to keep you informed and up to date on developments around you, particularly in the polity as well. So let's go. Governors of the Southwest Zone gathered in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, on Monday to discuss ways of forging closer ties on common issues of infrastructure, security, agriculture, education, and so on. The meeting took place under the auspices of the Development Agenda for Western Union, DON, set up some years ago to drive the economic and social integration of the Southwest Zone. It was the first meeting of the body after its pioneer Director General, Dikpo Famakinwa, passed on April 21 this year. And so the governors observed a minute silence in his memory and also once again praised Dikpo's immense contributions to the regional goals.
To grant him eternal rest. It is in our own interest when we consider the realities staring us in the face that we think, strategize, and work together. And if we face similar challenges, then it is proper for us to have the collective will and commitment to fight them together.
We must look at the best way to combine our efforts and promoting development.
That the economic integration and the political integration of the Western region, it's of significant importance to the growth and development of Nigeria.
Let us not only talk of it, let us act it.
We must stay together as governors of the Southwest, irrespective of our political lineage, to develop the region and equally develop our people. Give them a new lease of life. That's the whole essence of this coming together.
All right, governors of the Southwest speaking after their meeting in Abeokuta yesterday. Let's move on. The airport in Jalingo, the Taraba state capital, has been renamed the Dambaba Suntai Airport in memory of the former governor of the state who passed on in the United States of America recently. Suntai sustained life-threatening injuries when his helicopter crashed just outside the Yola airport while he was still governor. He never really fully recovered from the incident until he died recently. Governor Darius Ishaku has announced that the former governor, who will be interred on April 5, will be given a state burial. The two chambers of the National Assembly will come alive again today as the lawmakers resume for the plenary before they go on a 6-week break on Thursday. There are indications that the plenary this week will be dedicated to the task of debating and passing the resolutions for critical amendments of the Constitution and the Electoral Act as well. Now, some of the resolutions that are being proposed are very fundamental. The age requirement for president, governor, and membership of legislative assemblies will likely be tinkered with. And for the office of president specifically, this may be lowered to 35 years as against the present 40 years in line with global trend. Don't forget the incumbent, the current president of France, Emmanuel Macron, is 39. If he were to be in Nigeria, he wouldn't even be qualified to contest that post. Still on the area affecting elections, independent candidacy is recommended, we understand. The Obnoxious Land Use Act is recommended for abrogation. Financial autonomy for local government is likely to be recommended, while affirmative action recommending not less than 35% for women in elective and appointive positions is also likely to be one of the proposals. The other recommendations include a mandatory requirement for an elected president to name his cabinet within 1 month of taking the oath of office. Timelines may also be set for hearing and disposal of pre-election matters such that they don't drag on for years as we currently have. There are still so many pre-election cases in court for election that was conducted in 2015. deputy governors, or a vice president who succeeds an incumbent who dies or is impeached will regard such completion of that term as their first term in that office and can only seek one more term in that office after. The Office of Attorney General and Minister of Justice or Commissioner of Justice, as may be in the state, may be split into two, in which case you have Attorney General and then you have Minister of Justice or Commissioner for Justice in the state. The membership of the National Council of State may be enlarged to include past speakers of the House of Representatives and Senate presidents not impeached from that office, that is. But there are many more issues as well, including some that may not have been tabled, including the controversial issue of local government administration, diaspora voting, and of course, devolution of powers from the federal to the states by removing some issues from the exclusive list and put them in the concurrent list. The ongoing agitation for restructuring is, of course, having a fundamental impact on the assignment of constitutional amendment and electoral reforms this time around. So this might just be the most radical review we will be having since 1999. So how do we ensure that all of this stay true? How do we remove all the likely stumbling blocks? Don't forget that this issue or these matters will still have to be taken to the state houses of assembly where the governors hold sway and may, of course, constitute clogs in the wheel. How do we ensure that that doesn't happen? As it had happened before, my guest will be joining me shortly as we put the searchlight on these proposals for constitutional and electoral amendment. Of course, that will be after this short break.
They see chaos and conflicts. We see community action for good governance. They see poverty and want. We see perseverance and the will to go on. They see economic law. We see the ingenuity and
Okay, if you're just joining us, a very warm welcome to you, very apt on this very cold and wet morning in the city of Abuja. But it's very good weather, really. I love it. Let me introduce my guest. Ezewa Wagu is Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms. Is joining us for this People's Platform version of what should be happening in the National Assembly anytime from now. Good to see you. I like the bow tie.
Thank you very much.
Do you like the weather too? It's lovely.
We prayed for it.
All right, good to see you. And my next guest is one that has been away for too long, for so long really. He said he went on sabbatical, but he's back to national assignments in another form. Barrister Abba Ejembi is National Coordinator, Legislative Advocacy Project, FCT Liaison Officer, Civil Liberties Organization, CLO, Nigeria's foremost civil society body. Good to see you, Abba.
Thank you, sir.
And welcome back.
Thank you.
All right. It's a new dawn. Again, we're set to travel a path that we have traveled several times, but each time we usually leave the essential things that we need. We usually leave it behind. Just get to the destination almost empty-handed. This time around, the march is started. The National Assembly is actually on the march again. How hopeful are you that we may be able to achieve so much this time around, particularly that this is coming against the background of nationwide agitations for restructuring, agitations for secession, clamor for expulsion of some people from one part of the country to another, and all of that? How much of impact would all of this have on what is going on this time around?
Well, for me, it's an expectation. My expectation will be that that will rise to the challenge that confront us as a people, and that those who have responsibility to deal with the challenges that we face understand how serious what faces us, are. If that happens, then I will be able to say that looking forward to the next few days, that we'll be able to get citizens not to stay aloof again, because our aloofness is the challenge. Luckily for us, they will be voting they'll be voting with the electronic voting system. So we'll be able to track.
Yeah.
We'll be able
Everybody
to
will have to answer his father's name.
So it's not going to be yeah, hey, and then we don't know what you're voting for. Now citizens will be able to say, look, this is the time to track, and the expectation from our legislators. All this, you know, our work is lawmaking. This is the business. It has come to that point now. But the big one, which for, as you know, we discussed the last time I came here, they have already started shortchanging young people, even in the atomistic manner in which they want to relate with this engagement. They're not too young to run bill, for instance. You knew the drama that followed. Was it there? It wasn't there. Eventually, they came out and said,
after your appearance last week, they issued a statement and said it is on the bill. It's on the card.
Yes, but if you look at the Senate bill, it's the last. If it's the very last one, that tells you that
it was added.
It was actually added. But the atomistic manner will prolong the suffering of young people, you know, who will feel that we betrayed them. Look at, for instance, we are reducing the presidency from 40 to 35. We are reducing to 25. And then the argument, the principal issue is if the reduction or removal. Because when you reduce, the next generation of young people who will be coming will ask you why 25, will ask you why 35. And then so let's do a holistic, so that, like I said, we can get out from the political economy of constitutional amendment and know that it will take us a while before new agitations will come. What was in, and many things that we are even going to do constitutionally can be taken care of without necessarily constitutional amendment. Devolution of power, most of it does not require some of the engagement that we are seeing. It does not require them, but it is good that it comes in. But what are those issues? State police, okay? The constitutional, the 2014 conference agreed that there's a need for a multicultural, heterogeneous society like Nigeria not to have one police.
Central.
So whatever argument that you are using to stall, you know, state police is the same argument that punctures the idea of this one police. If you say abuse of power, we have seen incremental abuse of power by even the federal police. You knew what happened in the Edo election, for instance. People were seated to, and then just from Abuja, somebody cancelled that election without consultation with folks who wanted to do the election. So the thing is that we always sidestep the challenges that we face. So I hope that the coming period does not give us that kind of excuse anymore. We are not going to sidestep anything. If we have challenges, this is the time to confront them, deal with them, and end the tension, the social tension that has enveloped our society. You could dismiss most of these agitations, but the truth is that it expresses a layer of dissatisfaction. Strong layers of dissatisfaction that are playing up every day. Is the responsibility of this kind of amendment to see whether it can bring succor and hope.
Okay. Abba, yes. we are traveling a very familiar path, but how do we ensure that we have results this time around? And how much of impact will the fact that at this particular time there's almost a nationwide agitation for restructuring? Can we trust the National Assembly members to be able to effect the kind of restructuring Nigerians are asking for within the context of this constitutional amendment?
The legislature everywhere in the world responds to the issues raised by the people, or should respond to those issues. The idea of having a parliament is to ensure that, because not everybody can be gathered, there's not a market square, it's not a village town square. Not all the adults, even the Athenians, couldn't all gather at the town square. So it is to have the people, through their representatives, assembled in parliament, giving vent to what their issues are. That is the idea of parliamentary democracy. And unfortunately, because you said this is a familiar track we are again treading, unfortunately the leadership selection process has been so problematic that the people who gather in parliament cannot be their chairs and say we are indeed the representatives of the people. We have seen instances, the most recent being the Hembe case, Before Hembe, there have been several, a plethora of other cases.
In fact, the day Hembe happened, one senator
yes,
was
at the
also
Senate,
removed.
yes. So you see, for over 2 years, Hembe was sitting in Parliament on very shaky grounds. But this is not, it's a familiar track. And that was how the Parliament responded. The National Assembly responded to, well, first it was the judiciary that responded to that kind of feeling of shortchanging the people, even though there was no clear legislative provision. The Supreme Court in Amechi and INEC took the bull by the horn, looking at the feelings of the people, seeing the larger intendment of the representation and the rights of the people, took that far-reaching decision. And the response by the legislature was the amendment to section, which was captured in section 141 of the Electoral Act as amended in 2010. Now, the judiciary again, in some other cases, again responded. So it's been a debate, more or less, between the judiciary and the legislature. You saw the case, first it was Ombagu and CPC from Nasarawa State that followed the amendment in 141, section 141, and gave vent to it. I said, look, this is the law, and therefore we cannot declare you because the law says we cannot.
Even when there are grounds to declare you.
Even where there are grounds to declare you. And then it was Jeff. Jeff and Sekav Yotion, that the Supreme Court found a way. I mean, the courts all through found a way to do justice in the case and sacked Okejev. I said, no, this was the intendment of the people. This was what the people wanted. It was Yotion, Sekav Yotion, that the people wanted, and then they returned him. Now, you see, both the judiciary and the legislature were giving vent, and you saw when Amechi and INEC was decided, people didn't care that there was no clear provision of the law. People responded, people jubilated, say, look, the impunity that was happening in the ruling party at the point where people, and it had just come, that decision came after what we saw in Ararume. In Imo, yes, in Ararume. And so people felt the judiciary had done what was actually what the people intended to do.
Why is it difficult for the legislature to do that?
No, but because the legislature was also responding to what they thought, because they said, look, how can you return somebody who did not participate in all stages of the election? Now, the people did not have a choice. You're only looking at the situation of who should have been the candidate. And okay, if it is a political party that actually contests the election, that ticket will be incompetent if the candidate was disqualified by any reason. So they too were responding. And this has followed a well-beaten track. Don't forget that we have a long history of this. You will recall, also in 1979, in Awolowo and Shagari and Fedeku then, the issue of 12 to 3rd. You know,
two-thirds of 19 states.
Two-thirds of 19, 12 to 3rd of 19 states.
Two-thirds of 19 states, whether it should be 12 2/3 or it should be 13.
And you saw that the decision by the Supreme Court, even the Supreme Court itself, after it made the decision, said, look, don't cite this as a precedent. Because they knew they were not truly responsible. Now, people saw that as a subversion of the will of the people. Why was this so? Because all that had happened, people believed that if it was an election between Shagari and Awo for the rerun, that Awo was likely going to win the election. And so the judiciary responded. So people felt it was a subversion of the will of the people. And that immediately gave Shagari a credibility problem, a legitimacy problem from day one. And that was what happened when in August 1983, the presidential elections were held. The people, that prepared the ground. The landslide victories we saw all over, even though UPN had won in Kwara State, they had lost Oyo and lost Ogun State, which for them was fundamental. So when you subvert the will of the people in your constitutional amendment, in your electoral amendment, by whatever form, there's going to be a backlash. And I think this is where the National Assembly and the legislature as a whole, because these amendments, the constitutional aspect of them, will have to go back to the state legislatures. And if you subvert the will of the people, you are asking, that prepared the ground. If you of course, you listen to the speech, the coup speech, it dealt with a lot of these things. So if you subvert the will of the people are going to rejoice when there's the National Assembly and the legislature and the entire political class has a responsibility to get it right. The restructuring that people are talking about, that everybody is now mentioning. It's not new. These have been issues that have been with us. We are talking about state police. We have state police already, but I beg to argue that we are ready to submit that we have state police.
Right.
What is last man?
Let me just put you on hold on that issue. We may get to it. But first of all, let's look at what may torpedo the ship of state again this time around. We know what happened in the 7th National Assembly. So many things were packed on board, including the ones that the executive probably didn't feel comfortable with. 2 or 3 issues that the executive didn't feel comfortable with those 3 were enough to ensure that the whole the modest achievement that we would have recorded became futile at the end of the day. We need to also, because the states will still have to buy into all of this, and because we know how crucial the states are, and we know the relationship between the state houses of assembly and the executives in those states, how do we ensure that the journey this time around is not aborted by any of those things?
There are issues.
First of all, by the type of issues we bring on board.
There are clear issues that is touchy, very touchy, that you may have to resolve, not just through. I thought the work to get that happening should have preceded all of this. For instance, equality of states. If you want to say Southeast should have the number of states that the Northwest and all of that has.
Equality of states or equality of zones?
Well, zones, states in zones, yes. If you bring that argument, for instance, you need to do much more than just putting it out in this constitution. Since you have to go, it will sail through, because you have to still go back to states and those who are themselves sitting on ensuring that doesn't happen, who already have advantage in some sense. So there is need to be much more political engagement beyond constitutional if you want this to succeed completely. But for me, really, in the midst of the challenge that we face, I am more interested in a different kind of restructuring, and we are talking about it. We want economic restructuring. What do I mean by that? The country is not divided along poor, Igbo, Yoruba. It's divided for us along rich and poor. The rich in Nguru will definitely have advantage over the poor in that environment. The one in Owerri is doing so. So if you have a country where a family, for instance, one family has 2 private jets. One family has 2 private jets. One wedding had in attendance 30 private jets, and you don't have 10 functional, Abba would know that, 10 functional commercial airlines. It beats my imagination even if we restructure in the sense in which the argument is going, that we are going to have that kind of El Dorado that a lot of, and it's not a silver bullet. So I am interested in chapter 2. This chapter 2, what is the problem in using this amendment that is going on to make it justiciable? Don't tell me you don't have the money. Don't remove that when it is applicable. What do I mean by that? The state has responsibility to provide free education from primary to university. The argument is we can't implement it. But if the resources that is stolen from the country was diverted to ensuring that chapter 2 functions, the country is restructured. The tension will simmer. It may not completely solve the problem, but there is a constitutional amendment going on. Nobody in all the restructuring argument that we are seeing
has ever raised the issue of chapter 2.
People pretend, when you hear people even talk about the confab report, they pretend that chapter 2 was not mentioned there. Yeah. It was there that it should be made justiciable. So we have a constitutional amendment opportunity that helps us to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. If we can do that, even if the equality of states in the zones is not achieved, the poor in Owerri and the poor in Bayelsa, in Yenagoa, will feel a sense of belonging to this country in such a way that their challenges have been mitigated. They may not really worry about whether eventually there are 10 states in somewhere, and there's that's the way I am looking at the process that is going on. If we are able to,
Comrade Eze, you say we can push this argument as to economic empowerment as far as we can, but you need to get the political structure right. Because if the political environment is polluted, you cannot even begin to think of how you restructure the economy for the benefit of the people. Now, there is a sense in which the human person is not just an economic being. He's a mix of several kinds of beings. The spiritual aspect, that social aspect, that psychological aspect, once it is deprived, why do people commit suicide? Very rich people commit suicide when they feel that they no longer are being treated, that their dignity as human persons have been taken away. And that happens if you don't restructure politically. Now, you have situations where people feel that they have been excluded completely from participating in the affairs of the nation. They don't see the nation as their nation. In that sense, you need to make the restructuring in such a manner that everybody has a sense of belonging. If you miss that, the economic aspect, you will also miss out on that.
How do we achieve that?
How
do we achieve? Because I also want us to be practical and not esoteric. Let's be very practical.
It's a practical thing, because this economic argument alone, as it stands alone, is esoteric. It's more there than here, because
that's not the context in
for
which
instance, I will tell you practically.
His argument is that the fact that you have chapter 2, which has listed out the essence of government.
I agree with him. I'm saying
the essence of government, and then you have a clawback provision. In that chapter 2, which says that
I'm not
you may not
that.
hold the government accountable to discharging these responsibilities.
I agree. I am saying, if you say we have to concentrate more on that economic argument, we'll get it wrong. Because once you
can I clarify?
Yeah, maybe you need to clarify on this.
Okay, you see, everywhere you go to, the concentration is in the political. And I know the political argument is very elastic. It can never end. Your state, for instance.
Yes.
Okay, the Domas and the Gedes and the rest of folks there may never be governor
of Benue State. Unless something happens.
So then the agitation for what?
Upper state.
Upper state. Okay.
Is that not what gave rise to that?
Wait, yes. So the agitation for upper state. So create upper state. Once you create upper state, hold on. Abba becomes the majority in that place. The Gedes become minority. But hold on. Just hold on. Because it's important that we understand this. I am not saying the political is not important. But I know that it is not a recipe. There is a short term, there is a low-hanging fruit that this constitutional amendment opportunity gives us.
And that's the ones that benefit
the common people. Because this one, let me tell you, if you know the constitution, you know what the constitution says, in even how to amend this constitution. And you know that, as far as I'm concerned, this constitution is a benefit of coup d'etat. What do I mean? Those who planned a coup and benefited from it decided to create 774 local governments. There are no parameters for creating it. Ogori Magongo.
I like you. That is the parameter.
Okay.
I dash you. You are part of my friend.
No, hold on. Ogori Magongo. Ogori Magongo, 2 communities.
Yes.
Okay, and they now put in that constitution that for you to remove this thing that we have put, you will have to get 2/3
of the states voting to agree.
And then there's a Kano who, the old Kano alone has 44. Today, Jigawa has 27.
Yes.
Okay? In that constitution. So I'm saying that you can do all the grammar about restructuring if it is going to pass through this amendment process. If you don't suspend it, if you don't suspend that amendment, this process of amending this constitution that makes it cumbersome and heterogeneous, then you'll be speaking English on restructuring.
Good.
In that sense.
So we have a consensus on that. That's what it means.
No, I'm not arguing with you. The point that I'm making is that I'm not interested in wasting my time, since I already know what the challenge for getting this is. Yeah. But I know that this one, this chapter 2 now, the amending constitution, just take off that thing.
That
And,
clawback
yes,
provision
let
there.
us start the agitation for whether you have the money or not.
At another time.
It
And you see, because so long as we have that
you-
clawback, so long as we have that clawback provision
argument-
in the chapter 2, it will make governments lazy.
The argument-
and
the facts that we know today have killed the argument. In the last 2 years, the amount of money we are told that people have stolen from the national treasury has killed the argument.
If
there was any argument before,
that should be
Against chapter 2.
that should be
Against chapter
enough.
two,
That should be
yes.
enough to remove that
It's
clawback.
enough. It's enough to say that we have sufficient resources. If a single person can be returning or is alleged to be agreeing to return
$140 billion.
billions of dollars, it means the argument is dead. The state has the resources to implement. So you cannot come and push the argument that we do not have the resources. That is why we say it is incremental. We don't agree anymore. Now there is a social action aspect of it. Like I said earlier on, the legislature responds to what the people are agitating for. And that is why the docility, well, maybe not docility, the kind of frustration that the people are faced with, giving up. And that is part of what Comrade is saying, that he has given up, that you do not think that this change can happen in terms of restructuring politically. It can happen.
Tell me how now. That's what I want to know.
No, fine. When there is sufficient agitation.
History tells us that. History tells us that.
History tells us
Yes.
that if we were left for
Otumba, you
1993,
were part
No,
of those
in
calling
19
for sovereign national conference.
In
Why
19
the sovereign national conference?
in 1993,
No, hold on, all of us.
in
Abba,
1990,
Abba,
nobody.
Abba.
After 1990, after June 12,
Yeah.
this country was no longer the same. Whoever expected that the nation will concede the presidency to one ethnic group or one section of the country? And we saw it in 1999 because there was massive agitation. When you make it impossible, if
But
you
things
do not
have
agree,
happened. Things have happened since then too.
Yes, so
that are also
why-
rolling back.
why-
That are also rolling back.
That's what I'm saying. That's
I
why
want
I
us
say
to
the
face-
frustration.
I want us
the
to-
frustration
I want
that
to-
has
I
made
want
the
to
people
take
docile.
advantage.
No, I'm coming. The frustration that have made the people docile. I'm saying it's frustration. Not that the people are docile. We have seen the NASS, for instance, killed, decimated. The labor movement decimated. So the fighting organs have been so decimated that
And the professional bodies too are
professional
frustrated.
bodies are. So you have a sense in which the way that the leadership selection process has happened has subverted the will of the people at every point in time and given bad example. So people do not think that you can agitate peacefully to get some of these amendments. So you make it impossible. Now, it is in their interest, the political elite, it is in their interest to ensure that there's a minimum level of participation by all groups so that you have a sense of belonging. Now, the agitation we see about secession, I look at the argument particularly from the mainstream, is not that we want to go away. But we say this country is structured in a way that we're not comfortable in it. So if the political elite gets that message clear, then they will make concessions.
Have you tracked the
allow this to
fluidity?
go.
Have you tracked the fluidity of the campaign for restructuring?
That's the problem with it.
No, hold on now. Have you tracked that fluidity?
Sure.
In the sense that when you are in power,
You say no to this.
no, you don't say anything. You
Because-
just keep
because you are
quiet.
comfortable.
You don't say anything. So
But that's where the challenge is.
the point is not about people are not as frustrated as you think.
What?
No, just let me tell you. People, in terms of when I mean in challenging that, it is that if you want to restructure this National Assembly, this one that is there, with the way it is, its representation is incapable of giving you.
We agree.
No, hold on. And there is no way that you can remove this National Assembly.
No.
Except when we were calling for Sovereign National Conference. And what Sovereign National Conference meant really was insurrection. To suspend
Every constitutional order.
and do a new thing. And you saw that we have been transiting. On June 12th we stand.
No.
Hold on now. Declare the winner of June 12th. Then we move from there to say form a government of national unity, and then from form a government we kept shifting the polls. So I'm not quarreling with that. I am looking at what is possible with these chaps now. what is possible that does not have anybody quarreling with it is
that will stall the process.
That will stall the processes. For us as social entrepreneurs is how do we get these folks to remove that clubbering point in chapter 2. If they do so, which is what I think will not have a problem across board. Yeah. We will have been able to.
The argument is already dead.
Yes.
The argument against it.
No,
it's already dead.
These people don't believe it is dead.
We are the ones assuming.
It's for us.
No,
it's for the people. It's for the people now.
So the second thing, I don't want us to miss
the message clearly to them that the argument is dead. You can no longer push that argument.
There are other issues. There are issues that I think we need to take care of.
Yeah, and that are not contentious.
That are not contentious.
And may not torpedo that
holistic issues around electoral reform issues.
Yeah, some are
one is proposed. Residency. Part of what the argument you are pushing, which I agree completely with, justiciability of chapter 2. The argument against it is dead. Again, we have lived sufficiently long enough together, and there is a whole, and Farouk Perogi, our comrade, has pushed the argument that even without the British, we were already gravitating towards nationhood nationally. So the argument that I cannot contest an election in Abuja, for instance, or in Kano, or in Sokoto, if I have lived sufficiently, those are things
excellent.
That, yes, those are things that are low-hanging.
The punishment for electoral offenses.
Yeah, yes. Actually, like you raised the issue of electoral reform. Let's look at some of the proposals as it relates to electoral reform, for instance. Let's look at the ones that may not be, okay, the ones that we are not sure have been put on the template. Diaspora voting, for instance, is not on the template. And there are at least 17 million Nigerians that are qualified to vote.
That is what I'm telling you.
That are qualified. And these are people who also contribute substantial amounts to the foreign direct investment of Nigeria. What is difficult in allowing Nigerians in diaspora to vote?
You know,
why is that difficult to achieve?
We have a problem confronting anything. We shift. We are always shifting. If it's the mechanics to get that to happen is what we're afraid of. You have embassies in different countries. Citizens who register, who have come to the embassy to show themselves that they are citizens of the country and they are registered, are the ones who vote. So we've seen Niger do that. Our neighbor Niger, they voted in Sokoto, in Kano and Abuja in their last elections.
I wanted to say that.
No. You understand? So the Americans who live in Nigeria go to their embassy to vote, and it's transmitted. So the challenge, they say, our people, we are not ready. The IG of police said,
why are we not ready?
That's what I'm saying.
What does a Nigerian who is above 18 living in the UK, for instance, I don't think it needs the long process of being first of all, register as a voter. Once he's above 18 and his Nigerian passport says so, that should be what he needs to vote.
That's what I'm saying. The fear, there are many fears. The fear of rigging, the fear of the ruling party that appoints the ambassadors, subverting the process. All of those things are challenges. But serious nations don't fear challenges. Yeah. They confront it and deal with it. But can we take off the legislation that says it cannot be done? And then begin to work on the mechanics of making sure it's working.
At least we can wobble and fumble
and then we get there. But it's the same thing. Remove the legislation. Take it off. Don't say it can't be done. That diaspora voting is illegal. Is illegal. That does not show that we are joining the children of light. Ghanaians vote. They do diaspora voting. Independent candidacy. All of these issues, you don't need any struggle about those things. Then, more importantly, is the way we punish electoral offenses.
Okay, I don't want us to lump the issues together. Let me get Abba's take on the issue of diaspora voting.
No, like
70 million Nigerians. They said yesterday in the statement that there are about 70 million registered Nigerians that have met the voting age and they want to vote. They want to vote in 2019. And somebody somewhere is saying, no, that can't happen because the logistics are not achievable. What are the logistics for allowing diasporans to vote?
No, I think it is about fear. It's about the fear
not so much
that they cannot control. They will not be able to control what happens out there. And our elections are about control, about tough protection. Now, in the diaspora, you're not going to have that opportunity to protect, meaning that if the political class is scared of diaspora voting, it can only be that, because the argument about resources, we have said, is dead. Because indeed the cost, if you look at the cost plus the benefit analysis that you have, you derive the fact that these citizens vote makes them to begin to have a sense of belonging. That's very key, that they are part of the decision-making process. And a lot of them will feel freer to do all the things that they need to do to help this nation. So it's also in our interest, in our national interest, that these guys in the diaspora are given that sense of belonging, that opportunity to participate in deciding who manages the affairs of this nation. There are several other arguments, but I think that it is in the larger, like as they said, maybe what they need to do, yes, there are challenges, but remove the prohibition so that the nation can work towards allowing these people to participate. And who knows, tomorrow you may be in the diaspora.
You knew that before now. There are states that their results used to come last in elections, if you follow the
Deliberately.
trend. Deliberately. So you had Kano, you had Rivers, and all of that. So you brought 3 million votes. So what did we do? When the smart card reader was introduced, with all the fights that went with it, the elite knew that that was a game changer in our electoral system. If you operationalize it fully, you will not even get the 1-point-something million votes that you got. Because like the courts in that particular River State now, there are people who have lost their seats, and there are electoral officers who the court have sentenced. No, not even facing trial. There are those who are already sentenced because they manipulated the smart card, the smart card reader. So what does that tell you? That electoral reform is a work in progress. The big numbers will be reducing as the functionality of the electronic system begins, because that's why, if you notice, and I was on your program many times where we were discussing the reason why the fight on the smart card reader. It was because people knew. So take it back to the process. If you knew you have 10,000 people in London, for example, and they've come to vote, and the back end shows the number of people who vote, because as you are voting, INEC has the capacity to know who voted. Forget that they are not bringing that out. The data system that they're operating has capacity to tell you the number of people who voted. So all we need to do is to be serious on the issue of diaspora voting. If we want it, we can do it. The Togo and the rest of them had smartphone before we came on it. They started using it many years. Akara sellers in Cotonou were already using.
It sounded unbelievable.
Yes, but we are afraid. We just didn't. And then suddenly liberalize this thing. Suddenly we liberalized it, and we are the better for it. So we can't continue to argue,
INEC's position in all of this is INEC's position on this particular issue is heartwarming. INEC says it is ready. It can do diaspora voting. The only snag is that the lawmakers have said it is not possible, and that they have not put it in the law. So the pressure should be actually on the National Assembly.
But again, the diaspora people, what has been their lobby capacity? Because that is also
important.
Have
lobbied. Don't forget that they even went to court.
I'm talking about
Don't forget they went to court. A federal high court ruled in the favor of the Nigerians in diaspora.
How they judgment. You see, when you go to court on such issues, you want a pronouncement that gives you the opportunity, a platform to stand on and lobby. Now, so the more strident the voices of the people agitating for a thing get, the more the people are compelled to listen. And they know that you have the capacity to also do mischief. Now, because you're out there, you can also, but I salute them because they are patriots, because they can use that decision to discredit Nigeria. They have not done that. But they need to up their game in terms of lobbying, in terms of the campaign, in terms of awareness creation. They need to campaign on this issue, particularly that they have a decision in their favor. They need to campaign. So that is why democracy is a discussion, a never-ending discussion. It's for them to take it up from there.
Let me read some tweets. AK Sebastian Jr. The Nigerian political structure is too fragile to handle the issue of state policing. Okay, that's a response to. We may not be able to get to that issue today. The Nigerian political structure is too fragile to handle the issue of state policing, strengthen the states, and then you can handle such issues. Hope Osanwoyin says, Atiku has given a fantastic background on how Nigeria should be restructured. Those still opposed to it should quickly wake up from their slumber. Is Atiku giving that elaborate advice because he's not in office? If he's in office, will he advocate such radical restructuring? That was the point to make. Those who are in office naturally assume to be eating.
But does it really
and when
matter?
you are eating, you don't talk.
It doesn't really matter. Whether you are in office or out of it, is there sense in what you are saying?
Oscar I. Michael. For now, Nigeria is not a nation. It's a collection of nations. The constitution needs to be amended to reflect true nationhood. And A.B. Demeyi Kim says, Mr. Gbenga, your guests today have said it all. If that clause can be removed, I think we will be moving in the right direction. I don't know which clause he's talking about. Okay, I think the clawback provision in chapter 2 of the constitution as to the non-justiciability of the entire chapter. Biosa Chukwuka, the legislators and executive also need to cut down their allowances, which is part of restructuring. Do you see them buying that idea? Emmanuel Akman, my best part is the age of a candidate to run for president. I know now that we will fix this country. It's not cut and dry yet. It's just a proposal. And in any case, the belief here is that there shouldn't even be any age requirement in the first place. Because I'm surprised that when we are putting age requirement, we are not even putting educational requirement. Yeah. Or the educational requirement is one that we actually should take care of. What does it speak? What does it speak of Nigeria? Now all you need to do is to show evidence that you went to a secondary school.
Do you know
not
people?
That you passed.
Do you know people?
Do you know people? Do you know people? That you went to.
Do you know people even need to show that you have gone to secondary school?
Do you know people are
if you read the provision, it includes primary school certificates and other requirements.
Do you know
so you don't even need to have gone to secondary school?
Do you know people are still forging certificates?
Isn't that what if we are talking about? If we are talking about requirement for political
no, but
those not the areas.
No, see,
or those are areas.
No, every one constriction does not explain the other. Democracy is about participation.
Okay, so no educational requirement.
No
age requirement.
So if
nothing at all.
No, that's not the point.
Okay,
that's not the point. There is 18 years for you to vote. If you have mental issues, you cannot. If you are not a Nigerian, all of those are there. Okay, but what I'm saying is that if the people want somebody who didn't go to school to represent them,
because there's something they have seen in him.
Because there is something they have seen in him. There are traditional institutions that are managed. Courts, quasi-court situations in communities that are headed by people who didn't go. And if you see the quality of decisions that they make in those places, you'll be amazed. So there are traditional.
And that is why even our laws recognize customary.
You understand? There are traditional. So the point is that don't use one restriction. One limitation to support the other. That say, okay, because this one they don't want to do this, then up this. You would also take out a good number of your citizens who should participate.
To represent their interest. But there is also the sense in which the way the world is structured today, that you need to be able to understand.
Exactly.
That decision is not. Is an elite decision. Is an elite. Is the elite who says. No, if you want to vote for somebody, if Abba stands up to contest, I can say Abba is a lawyer. Abba is this, he can understand this, he cannot. That's my decision. And the other man does not understand those things. I decide not to vote him. But there may be issues. Yes, Abba is a lawyer, Abba is this, but we don't know him. He does not come to the place. He does not represent us. It's the idea that I am the one taking that decision is very important, and that's the point. So when we say because the world is now gone this way, there is in Borno State there is somebody who does not speak English. And his people keep returning him. They return him. He doesn't. To state assembly. It doesn't matter. They want him, and they think he can represent their interests. And there are people who have PhDs. There are people who have PhDs who today, if they contest election, will throw them pure water.
But there is a sense in which you must have
We are running off. We
statecraft.
need to get out of here.
I agree.
It's,
I'm not quarreling with that. I'm saying let
so
that decision be
be
my
with the people.
Let me be the one to say you
Quickly,
are
just
statecraft.
few words. Independent candidacy, is it something we should? Is it? Are we
Do-
right for it? Will it add to liberalization of the space?
Everything that opens the space is what democracy is about.
Okay, so the time for independent candidacy.
Ghana has how many political parties? It has
Yes,
independent.
they still have
America has 400 or more political parties. It has independence. So we are, what is the argument?
Abba.
The idea of all political parties being national, for me, is what is problematic.
Okay, we can counter that by introducing independent candidates.
Yes. Okay. Now, but because you still have that provision that all political parties must be headquartered in Abuja here, not
and have offices
in all of the. So independent candidacy,
including local government and
yes,
ward offices.
Independent
and
candidacy.
then you take 10 million for me to buy a form, 25
yes,
million for me to buy a form to contest election.
May be the saving grace in this regard, so that people who can do it, even at their local level alone.
All right. Let's see whether, if nothing stops us tomorrow and permitting your own individual assignments, after we have watched what happens today in the National Assembly, then we'll see how we put the arguments further, particularly on the issue of state police, more so when people are already contributing to that idea.
We already have state police.
I don't believe so. Thank you so much. Let's just put a cap on it here. It's easier for us to remove the cap and continue the arguments. Right. Thank you so much. Ezewa Wagu is Chairman Partners for Electoral Reforms. He has joined us for this morning's conversation. It's a never-ending one, like we already agreed here. So we resume tomorrow. Barrister Abba Ejembe is National Coordinator, Legislative Advocacy Project, the FCT Liaison Officer of Civil Liberties Organization as well. Thank you so much. And good to see you again. All right, thank you for investing your time with us. Let's make it a date, same time tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of the day. I'll see you.